When you start anything, you do what everyone else is doing. You follow the path of those who've been successful before you. We did that, and it worked. For a while. We realized we can make our clients money, but there's gotta be more than that. What if it wasn't just about making the numbers look good, but we could really enjoy the people we served? That's what we wanted to build. The Cornerstone Financial Network was born. We weren't going to be just about the numbers. They were important, but they weren't everything. We were going to be the people our clients wanted to do business with. We were going to get results, help them realize their dreams, and enjoy the process along the way. We discovered we weren't just like everyone else, and if that meant we wouldn't be for everyone, we would accept that. We valued people over process, but we knew we'd win in the end if we held true to the Cornerstone promise. We would serve our clients in a way that prioritized their goals, and we'd lead them forward to the futures they always envisioned. Join us at Cornerstone, where our promise is to lead you forward. We valued people over process, but we knew we'd win in the end if we held true. We are committed to the success of female financial advisors. There aren't enough female advisors, and they often make less than their male counterparts. We find it interesting that this is all while research reflects that women use financial advisors more than men and prefer to work with women more than men. We believe the industry needs to change. At Cornerstone, we intend to lead that change. We're offering an opportunity for women to experience unprecedented support, training, earning potential, flexibility, and a community of women just like you. Women who want to be successful in business and in relationships. And through the Together Financial Collective Initiative, Cornerstone also contributes a portion of all female advisor proceeds to charities, making a difference in the lives of women worldwide. Consider a career at Cornerstone, where we believe in becoming the change we hope to see.
How has your relationship and your partnership at Cornerstone benefited your practice?
We've seen our revenue literally quadruple in the last 3 or 4 years. And we were doing well before we started doing that, but this has added a whole new dimension that I never thought possible. And I've been in this, like I said, for four decades.
Legacy Plus is a strategy that takes two ideas.
You look good in that chair,
each
Stan,
are,
and
I think,
Dan.
quite powerful in their own right. It fuses them together in a way that makes them 10 times more powerful than either one would be standing alone.
You know, I've always felt like I was pretty knowledgeable. I've been a student on investing. I felt like I was pretty rounded on what I understood on how to invest, and had somebody lay a piece of paper in front of me. And I'm looking at this piece of paper and the numbers that they're saying we do, and I'm just like, no way. I don't believe it. It's too good to be true. I mean, that's exactly what I thought. It's too good to be true. So I jumped in and started studying it. I started reading up on it, going through everything I possibly can. Came back and it's just like, okay, this is an amazing estate planning tool that people don't know about. And so I get excited talking about it just because I think it's something most people, I've yet to find somebody that's ever heard of it before. That's what's amazing to me. It's a great, great strategy.
You partnered with Cornerstone. I'd like to know what were the benefits of partnering with them?
The key word you said is partner. I think that is such an important word because a partner is somebody that's for you. And I tell you what, to have them in my corner, you always have questions that come up that maybe you don't quite understand. They will help you. If they don't know the answer, they'll help you get the right one. And I really consider them an expert. They get it. It needs to be done specifically for that client because every one of them are different. You have to really figure out what's best for them. And sometimes having somebody else to take it to and pass it through them and say, here's what I was thinking, and getting their feedback, that is partner. That's a partner. And that is what's incredible with the relationship that I've had with Cornerstone. They have been nothing but a blessing to be able to go to and work with.
Hello, and on behalf of Cornerstone Financial Network and Pinnacle Legacy Law, we want to welcome you to this live streaming event. I'm Carolyn Long, and I'll be your host today as we discuss some very unique approaches, one in particular, that Cornerstone uses to build protection for their clients, wealth protection and asset protection. We call it Legacy Plus. We will be hearing from experts in the field, financial advisors and estate planning attorneys who will be here to answer your questions later in the live stream. And they have been employing this strategy successfully for their clients for years and for themselves. So we want to tell you a little bit later about 3 very important live in-person workshops that you will be interested. They're free, and we'll be taking questions from you a little bit later in the stream too. So let's get started, shall we? First of all, we'd like to introduce Gary Harris to you. He is a financial advisor at Cornerstone. He's also the owner of Harris Investments and Financial, and Gary brings with him lots of experience to the Cornerstone Group. He had a first career very successful at Walmart, and so now he owns his company with his daughter and with his son, and he is here with us today. Thank you, Gary, so much. And we also have Dan Cunningham. Welcome, Dan. It's always good to have you here on the set. Dan is an advisor with Cornerstone who actually is involved in the industry association very heavily. He brings both decades of experience and a desire to help people, and we're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
And also Stan Miller. Hello, welcome, Stan. Stan is the CEO of Pinnacle Legacy Law. He, along with all these other guys, has been in the business for a long, long time and has noticed that Legacy Plus is a very powerful tool in estate planning. So we welcome all you guys. Can't wait to hear what you have to say about this unique strategy. And Dan, I want to start first with you, Stan. Would you give us just a capsule? What is Legacy Plus?
Okay, I guess in really simple terms, let me say it's a really powerful strategy that we use with high net worth individuals and families as well as high income individuals. It's a really powerful strategy. It's so powerful, in fact, that I call it my Swiss Army knife of planning because I can use it in so many different fact pattern scenarios. And it does have, it's comprised of some different elements. It requires a little explanation, but I think when people really understand how it works and see that it's not only powerful and effective, but it's also a low risk strategy. And you can't say that about every strategy that's out there, right? I mean, there are things you can do that bring a lot of risk, but this is one that's actually a low risk strategy, but it applies in so many different applications, and that's why we're so excited about it.
You recently made a video that I saw that to me was just the nut. It was so simple, and I believe that we have it here in studio. Let's take a look.
All right, so we're going to spend some time today talking about the strategy that we call Legacy Plus. I'm really excited about this strategy because it's actually a fusion of 2 strategies, and each one of those strategies all by itself is really powerful, but when you take these 2 strategies and put them together, fuse them together, it becomes exponentially more powerful. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I want to answer right away 2 questions. One is, what is Legacy Plus? And the second question, who's it for? So first off, what is it? What is Legacy Plus? It's a unique planning approach. It's a strategy that has low risk but measurable risk, and all of the components of it, every component of it, is a time-tested strategy. This is not some new contraption, new invention. It's time-tested. So who's it for? It's for high net worth individuals, It works really well for business owners. It works for highly compensated executives and professionals, and it works really well for farmland owners. Those are four. It works for others too, but those are four audiences that we know this is really appropriate for. So I said this strategy is really powerful, and I believe it is. It's exponentially more powerful than either of its components. But why is it so powerful? And I'm going to give you three reasons why it is really powerful. One is it has a minimum impact on the client's cash flow. Minimum impact on the client's cash flow, and that's huge. It carries with it, secondly, it carries with it the potential for high stock market gains with zero downside market risk. And number three, it has powerful tax advantages that a mere investment account would not have. So let's talk about each of those three components of Legacy Plus. Number one, it uses leveraged capital. That's why it has minimum impact on our clients' cash flow. So we're using leveraged capital. It incorporates a specially designed life insurance product that's specifically designed to be very tax efficient. And thirdly, it's all inside a structure that is a unique and specially crafted trust structure designed specifically for the Legacy Plus strategy. So Legacy Plus is an approach that utilizes a loan from an independent third-party lender like a bank, for example, to fund some or all of the premiums on the life insurance, right? Number two, no ERISA limits on the amount that can be invested. So one of the scenarios that is really compelling here is that this strategy can be used as an alternative to a 401k plan. Now, that money is going to be invested, and because it's invested, the policy is going to participate in market gains. Is I think really interesting. This is a compelling, a key component of the Legacy Plus strategy. The investment account is structured in such a way that it avoids any market loss. So we have what's called a zero floor. Also, in the Legacy Plus strategy, the investment account benefits from the fact that it's in a tax-free container. So we don't pay income tax on investment earnings. We don't pay income tax on capital gains. And it's structured so that benefit actually continues on for multiple generations. We're not just avoiding the estate tax whenever our client dies. We're actually avoiding the estate tax for multiple generations. Depending on what state we create the trust in, it can be up to 300 years or 365 years. In some places like South Dakota, there's no, it's outside the taxable estate forever. This is, these components are not new. Everything I'm talking about has been around for a long time. And what's unique about it is putting all these pieces together into this structure, and that's what creates this Legacy Plus strategy. Because the way we've designed it, using this specially designed trust, not only does the cash value enjoy the asset protection features that we want, but also the money that we borrow out of the policy enjoys the same benefit. By using hedging strategies, the policy value goes up, we get the up. If the policy value, if the market goes down, we may have years where we don't get anything credited to the policy. So let's take a look at how a life insurance policy 2001, and that money had been in that policy all the way through to 2021 for a 20-year period. And I think if you can see the chart here, you can see, maybe you'll understand better how this power of the zero floor works. And in the example that we're showing here in this slide, the cap rate is 9.5%. So what you see there is you see two lines. You see a blue line that shows what the S&P did in each of those years. And then you see that gold line that shows policy performance with the impact of the zero floor. One of the things we know is that from 2001 to 2011 was, if not the worst, it was certainly one of the worst 10-year periods we could have ever picked out since the crash of '29. And because, right after, 2001, we had, the 2007, 2008, collapse where the S&P was down over 38%. And so, if you're invested in that, what that means is that to get back to even, you've got to dig out of a pretty deep hole. But this policy, that's not the case here, because, whenever the S&P is down 38%, yes, it's true, this life insurance policy didn't get anything credited to that account that year, because we're not having to dig out of those deep holes that result when you have down years like a 38% down year. You can see that at the end of a 20-year period, we actually end up, even with the caps, because we didn't get all of the upside of the policy, but even with the caps, you can see that we end up substantially ahead of where we would have been if we just put the money in the S&P without the benefit of the hedging that's going on inside the life insurance policy. So we call that the power of the floor, the zero floor. And that's a key core concept in the Legacy Plus strategy. So how does it work in a high interest rate environment? Well, that was a question that actually concerned me, because this is a strategy that I've actually used. My wife and I have implemented this strategy ourselves, and one of the questions I ask myself is, how's this going to work if we get into a high interest rate environment for some sustained period of time? And it turns out that when we went back and did the homework on this over the last 30 years, it turns out that we've had a number of periods of high interest over the last 30 years. I think we've had interest rates over 5%, 5 or 6 times actually. And so it turns out when you do the homework on this and look at how it works, the policy actually performs over time in low interest rate environments, but it also performs just as well in high interest rate environments. And that's because there's a connection between interest rates and the cap rates that the insurance company build into the policy, so that whenever interest rates go up, the cap rates also go up. So we look at this as a long-term program, and over time, the data clearly indicates that it works in low interest rate environments, but it works also just as well in high interest rate environments. And when we have the data, I think that really makes the case that proves that to be the case. So we're talking about the lifetime benefits of the program, right? So I've said the client controls the trusteeship, very important concept. So the client gets to decide who is in charge of the trust that owns this policy, because it's the trustee, of course, that has the right to do the borrowing and to make distributions. So having a trustee that's friendly and cooperative is going to be something really important to the client. Now, the second point is that the client can, through the trustee, can access the policy value through policy loans. So if the client needs money, the trustee can borrow the money and get that money to the client in a number of ways. The trustee can borrow money from the policy, then in turn loan the money to the client. The trustee can borrow the money and make distributions out to the trust beneficiaries, and if the beneficiary of the trust is the client's spouse and they're on good terms, the spouse is certainly free to share those distributions with our client. And then if we establish the trust in certain jurisdictions, or have the right to move the trust to certain jurisdictions, the client can actually be a direct beneficiary of the trust. So the trustee can borrow money from the policy and then in turn make a distribution of the borrowed funds to our client. Another benefit of the Legacy Plus strategy that I think is really worth emphasizing is that all the assets in the Legacy Plus structure are entirely asset protected. That's important to most of our clients. That is really important to the medical professionals who worry every day about getting sued and losing everything. So what's inside the structure, all the cash value buildup in the policy, the death benefit of the policy, all of that is asset protected. So even the money that's borrowed out of the policy is asset protected, and that's not the case under any state law that I know about. But what's also important is that even after our client passes away, the death benefit remains in a structure that's asset protected for the client's spouse, it's asset protected for the client's children and grandchildren, down for, all the way through multiple generations. So the asset protection is really a key component of the Legacy Plus strategy. So just quickly let me mention that there's also a gift tax benefit, because the Legacy Plus strategy is designed so that our client does not have to use, they could if they wanted, but they don't have to use any gift tax exemption to fund the policy, okay? Also, by having the policy inside this structure, we believe that we've effectively protected this from the potential changes in tax law. As we know, the law, under current law, the estate tax exemption gets whacked in half on January midnight, on December 31. So this structure is protecting us from the reduction, the exemption, the changes in estate tax rates, all those things. So we have long-term protection from changes in tax laws, including the estate tax, gift tax, and including also income tax.
Okay.
All right, so I want to take just a second and draw a diagram and explain to you how it is I explain this to my clients. So anytime I'm doing an estate planning, any kind of estate planning conversation, for a married couple, I draw two horizontal lines, and I put these numbers in because there are only 3 periods of time we need to think about, right? We need to think about how this is going to work while the husband and wife are both living, how it's going to work whenever one spouse is gone and the other's living, and how it's going to work when they're both gone. What I also like to do is to draw a dotted vertical line, because over on the left-hand side, I want to show everything that's going to happen that's estate tax included. And then on the right-hand side, I want to show everything that's estate tax excluded, right? So on this side, we're going to do the revocable living trust planning, pour over wills, powers of attorney, all of that. But on the right-hand side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a box that's going to represent the Legacy Plus trust. This is an irrevocable trust. It has very specific features in it that are not like any you've seen with other trusts. But what I want to show is that inside this trust, there's going to be a life insurance policy. And of course, in order to create a life insurance policy, you have to pay premiums. So what we do is we go find a bank that's going to loan money. They're going to loan money to the trust, and the trust is going to put that money into the life insurance policy. Now, typically, when you purchase life insurance, you typically think about, how do I get the most death benefit for the least amount of money invested? We're not going to do that here. What we're going to do is make every effort to put as much money into this policy as we possibly can, because what we want to do is get that money in the policy invested so that it can grow inside the tax-free environment inside the insurance policy. So we're going to get a bank loan that's going to fund the premium, and that premium is going to go into this investment account. Typically, it's going to be, in most cases, it's going to be an S&P index fund, and we're going to fund that premium every year, and that investment is going to be invested in the market. Again, it's going to be invested, with this hedging strategy that assures that in any given year, our investment return is never going to be worse than zero, but over time, that account value is going to grow, so that at some point, typically, we think somewhere around the 15th or 16th, maybe the 17th year, we're going to have enough cash value in the policy that the trustee will be able to borrow money out of the policy and repay the bank loan. And once we've done that, the trustee also is going to have the opportunity to borrow money out of the policy and make distributions of money out of the policy, either to the spouse, to the children, and depending on what state law we chose to set the trust up in, maybe even to make distributions directly to our client who can be a beneficiary of the trust, and use the cash value of the policy as a significant source of asset-protected retirement income. Then, when our client passes away, the death benefit pays off, the trust has the death benefit, and that loan is paid with the death benefit. And so what remains after that loan is paid is going to remain in the trust. The trust is going to move down to this second level where we have a trust for the benefit of the surviving spouse plus the kids, and that money is going to be invested. That money is going to be available to be distributed to the surviving spouse, the children, the grandchildren, whoever the client wants to have as the beneficiaries of the trust. And it's going to work that way for as long as the surviving spouse is living, and then whenever the surviving spouse passes, typically what's going to happen is we're going to create sub-trust for the client's children, and those sub-trusts are going to be designed so that they're protected from that child's judgment creditors. They're going to be protected from that child's financial immaturity if they're too young to really be somebody we would expect to manage the money. But it's also going to be protected from their divorce or their business failures or bankruptcy. So for their whole life, these funds are going to be the funds in this trust are going to be protected for the benefit of that beneficiary, that child or that grandchild. And then when that child dies, those assets are going to move on down to the next generation. But the way we've designed it, the assets in that trust for that child are not going to be counted as belonging to that child for estate tax purposes. So all of the growth that occurs inside this trust during the child's lifetime is going to be passed on to the next generation totally free of the estate tax. So we're going to have estate tax protection for multiple generations. That depends on state law. Sometimes it's 300 years. Sometimes, for example, in South Dakota, it's forever. So we can grow this value outside of our client's taxable estate, beyond the reach of our client's creditors, in a way that that provides financial security to our client's spouse, children, grandchildren, more remote descendants over multiple generations, all outside the estate tax system. Let me just quickly walk you through an example case. Let's take an example of a male. This guy is 49 years old. He owns a freight business. He has a net worth of $12 million. In this case, he's been examined and his health is pretty good, so he gets a preferred rating. And his objective here is to have a death benefit that can fund potential estate tax liability. He wants to also provide a pool of funds to provide a cash cushion to his heirs who are going to take over the business, right? He's not totally confident that his kids are going to be as good a manager as he is, and they may need a cash cushion to cushion their mistakes. And he also would like to have a source of funds for his own retirement that decouples his financial security in retirement from the kids. He doesn't want to have his retirement income be entirely dependent on how well his children do in running the business. So those are the outcomes that he was looking for. But as a successful entrepreneur, he's got concerns about the market risk. How am I going to deal with? He knows that when you put money in the stock market, sometimes it goes up and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it goes down. So we're going to be able to deal with that objection in the Legacy Plus strategy by talking about how this zero floor works. Here you see an illustration, I think, of the proposal that we made to this guy who owns this freight business. So what you see is that to purchase the policy that he wanted, that had this initial death benefit of like $8-something million, the policy premium was going to require $360,000 a year out of pocket. But because of the way the Legacy Plus strategy works, using this bank loan to fund premium payments, the bank is going to is going to loan the entire premium, the entire $360,000 per year for 10 years is going to be funded by a bank loan to the Legacy Plus Trust. Now, in this instance, the client understood that that bank loan has interest, and in this case, he said he had the cash flow to pay the interest on that, and so that's part of the program. And so you can see there's an interest component he's going to pay. And then what you can see is that in subsequent years, the cash value will have grown sufficiently that we're going to be able to start borrowing money back out of the policy and repaying the bank loan. And so over in that last that column number 9, you can see what the death benefit is at in any year whenever our client passes away. And that money then would go into the trust for his spouse and children, and then ultimately pass on down to the trust created for his children and grandchildren. So the takeaways from that are our client's total out-of-pocket in year 1 is just $11,500. His total out-of-pocket over the entire 10-year period is $462,000, and that's to get an $8 million policy put in force and maintained. So when he reaches retirement age and wants to start taking money out, he's able to take out, in this example, he's able to take out something just over $1.6 million starting in year 11 all the way out to year 30 of the policy. And he's creating a tax-free benefit, depending on the year he dies, of somewhere between $6 million and $8.8 million that's going to pass down to the trust for his spouse and ultimately to his children. And he's going to do all of that with an out-of-pocket expenditure that is really the interest. In this case, is the interest on the premium loan that was loaned by the bank. So, if you're an estate planning attorney, we know how insurance guys get paid, right? But if you're an estate planning attorney, how do you get compensated for the Legacy Plus strategy? I think we have a pretty good answer for that. And one answer is that you get paid for the trust planning. So typically when you implement a strategy like this, other work comes along with it. You don't just do the trust itself. Typically the client does other work. That's certainly been the case in the cases I've worked on. So this solution is part of a more comprehensive plan that the estate planning attorney gets paid for. But also, as we know, the policy, there's compensation related to the policy, and you have the opportunity to participate in that. And I will tell you that these are typically very large policies, and because they're very large policies, the compensation on the policy is actually very large too. It's not uncommon to see the revenue generated in compensation for the policy to be even a one policy to be your entire equal to your last year's income. So I just want to underscore that the compensation is significant, and you do have the opportunity to share in that, and you can do it in one of two ways. One way to do it is to get an insurance license and be on the application and participate in the comp that way. But I know a lot of attorneys that for a whole variety of reasons don't want to do that, and if you don't choose to do that, another way to do that, and this is state specific, and we'd have to check the law in your state to make sure that this would work, but you can become a member of an LLC that is created where another member of the LLC has an insurance license. Again, that's a state law issue, but many states really specifically allow for that, so that you're then able to participate in the compensation of the policy by distributions from the LLC, because another member of the LLC is licensed, it has an insurance license in that jurisdiction. But again, I just want to emphasize that the opportunity in this Legacy Plus strategy is for you, with just a very small number of transactions, to double or triple your income in a given year.
Stan, you did an excellent job of explaining that visually, and as the video was airing, you mentioned something that I think was so important. You said that you guys, as financial advisors and as attorneys, planning attorneys, that this is almost like a window of opportunity. I think you called it a crack in the universe that gives you an opportunity to tell people how exceptional this strategy is.
Yeah, what's amazing about the strategy is that it really opens the door to a conversation that's not just about money. Although it clearly is about money, right? About creating financial security and doing it in a low-risk way for a huge variety of client situations. But it's more than that. The conversation clearly goes beyond that to engage clients around what really matters to them. What is the why of planning? What is it they really want? And what we know is that while clients want to create financial security, they want to save taxes and do all of those things, they also want to leave good kids, they want to leave good grandkids, they want their lives and the lives of their children to have a positive impact on the world. And this strategy really opens the door for us to also have that conversation with the client.
At low risk, I mean relatively low risk.
Right, and I mean, everything you do has risk, right? Even having cash under your bed has risk, right? But this is low risk, and the risk is knowable, immeasurable, understandable.
I want to talk to you, Gary Harris, because you have your own Legacy Plus story. You were very skeptical when you heard about this idea.
That is the number one word I would tell you is it's okay to be a skeptic. I mean, it really is. And to go back to my own story, I had the opportunity to have somebody present Legacy Plus as a client, and I remember them putting that illustration in front of me. You saw the illustration Stan just showed, but somebody put an illustration in front of me, and I looked at it, and I was like, no way. It's too true. It is the too true to be, too good to be true. So educate yourself. I mean, that's what I did. I was like, I started really jumping in and reading everything I could, and the reality is it does exactly what Stan's covered. I mean, is there a risk? There's always risk on any investment, but it is minimal. It's a very minimal risk. So for me, it was part of a portfolio, Carolyn, when I looked at it, it wasn't one thing or another. I looked at everything I was doing as far as an estate and said, you know what, this is a great piece to add to that equation that, to be honest with you, I didn't even know about it until that introduction of Legacy Plus several years ago. And since then, I continue to learn about it. It's one of those things that has so much flexibility on how you approach it, because Gary Harris of several years ago and where I think I'll be 10 years from now, things change, but so does Legacy Plus. It can change with you to whatever your priorities are. So skeptic initially, I'm not a skeptic anymore. It truly is a great tool.
What impact has this had on your clients and on you particularly?
Well, I think again, to me, it is part of the portfolio, but I think the client to know you're planning not just for today, but you truly are planning the whole, your family. You're looking ahead. And it's hard to do that sometimes. I was never a person that really looked at life insurance, to be honest with you. I thought as life insurance as a thing I threw money in and I didn't get anything back.
Right.
That's not what it is. And again, you have to learn how it can actually work for you, and that's what this really is all about.
Well, we're going to come over to Dan, because I love you, Dan, but you are very articulate when it comes to talking about Legacy Plus and the impact that this can have on families and on future families, and that the client is always in charge and in control about that money throughout generations. How does that work?
Well, I would borrow a phrase from Stan, and that is, it's really all about the fact pattern. And I learned from an attorney years ago really to ask the client, the age-old question, what keeps you up at night? What do you think about? And I think our job really is to guide them through their life and through that life journey. So, what's on their mind? What keeps them up at night? Well, what are they worried about? The same things we are. They're worried about potential lawsuits. They're worried about future taxation changes, estate planning. But they're also worried about their, am I going to do the right thing for my children and grandchildren? Am I going to hurt them with these gifts? And I think that's where Legacy Plus, with a specially designed trust with good language, and us working together as a teaming partner with the attorneys and other advisors to help this family make a difference in the future, so that their children have education and they care about charities and they care about them creating character. And so I think it has so many wonderful components, like Stan said in the film, that really fuse together. I think it's the only place that I know of in the American economy where all of these features and all these tax codes come together. And Gary really says it well with flexibility, and I think that's what families want. They want us as advisors to guide them through it, and the attorney wants us to work with those clients in a respectful way and make sure we're talking about all the details and designing these things intelligently and compliant. And so I think all those things bring together just a component that you can't get anywhere else that I know of.
And it's amazing, because what you're saying, Stan talked about it going generation to generation, but you still get to keep the keys to the car. You still have a trustee that really protects to make sure people's lives aren't impacted in a bad way. So it's not like you're just passing down something and has no controls. There is a control mechanism to this whole process that, to me, was a huge deal for me, because I don't know what my grandkids are going to be like, right? Yeah. So you want to make sure there's a protection hedge there too. So.
And by the way, having that control is such an important component. For every grown-up human I think I've ever worked with, male or female, the idea of giving up control is one of the most terrifying thoughts that you can allow you can have, right? And so this strategy works in part because you don't have to do that.
Yes. Gary, what advice would you give to professionals who are thinking about Legacy Plus or wanting to get into this marketplace?
I think the number one thing is you really want to work with people that are doing this as a priority, not as a sideline. There's a lot of people that will sell you things as a sideline because, oh yeah, I could do that. This is not one of those things. You want somebody who truly is putting the time in to make sure it's done right. And that's actually how my relation started. That's how it started with Cornerstone. It started with that because I trusted them. And they showed me how they had made it a priority to make sure, A, I understood it as a client, had access to legal advice and could make sure it's set up the way it needed to be set up. So it is so important to make sure you get into this. Get into it with somebody that's an expert that does it day in, day out, not as a sideline.
And I know you guys are very concerned about that. You're involved at Cornerstone in all this education for advisors and estate planners, and I'm very excited about the workshops coming up. And I think that we do have a slide that will tell you a little bit about the workshops. They are scheduled in September, and there you see it. Save the date, okay, because in Houston it'll be on the 19th of September, the following day in Fort Worth, and then in Dallas. And these are in-person, free, informational and educational workshops if you have an interest. And if you'd like more information, you can go to our website. There's a form there that will tell you just to give your name and maybe your contact info, and our folks will get in touch with you from Cornerstone. But there's the info at cornerstonefinancialnetwork.com. Just drop us a note. Tell us that you're interested in the upcoming workshops. Okay, I wanted to mention a couple of other things. This, for someone who is just learning about Legacy Plus, it seems a little overwhelming because you're talking about something that is long-term. You had mentioned, Stan, one time that for younger people who are concerned about wealth building, this is a tremendous asset. And for anybody else, but over the long term, there's just tremendous possibilities. Are there certain things that are inherently different about Legacy Plus than other types of strategies?
The thing about Legacy Plus that's, I'm going to say, really unique is that, as I said in the video, you saw this, right? That it takes two concepts. The life insurance policy that has that zero floor, but the opportunity for upside in the market, but then wraps that in a trust that has unique features to it that build in that long-term flexibility that Gary's talking about, right? And so it's that combination, but it's that flexibility that allows it to work really, really well for a young professional who's thinking about how can I have a tax-free retirement income in 15 or 20 years that's not only reasonably predictable but also asset protected. So a client that comes to us, and one of the common fact patterns is a client that's wealthy and they're wondering, how do we pay estate tax? That's a totally different fact pattern. And so the tools that we use are the same tools. It has the same components, but the design of it, is different in some respects, right? So it's not a cookie cutter. And just to underscore a really important point, it's not a once and done thing. And by the way, most estate planning, I would say all good estate planning is not a once and done thing. Everything you do, it's in many respects, it's like your car, right? You have to change the oil and rotate the tires, or if you don't do that, it doesn't really work over the long term. There's kind of a myth about estate planning that you can go have your will made or a trust made and you're good to go till you die, and that's not really true. But this strategy, Legacy Plus, does require an ongoing relationship with the professional, because market conditions change, your goals change, a lot of things change, and you've got to have the ability to navigate that, and that's why I really like working with the Cornerstone guys, because they have a long-term commitment to this. This is not an end, like let's get the deal done, let's get paid for it, and let's get out of here. They're here tomorrow, and they're here next year, and they're here 10 or 20 or 50 years from now, and that's the kind of relationship you want to have when you're going to implement something that has this kind of potential for your family.
Dan, I know that you've been using this for a long time and you've got so much experience. Can you give me an idea of one of your clients, without naming a name, who has tremendously benefited from this, who might not have otherwise?
Well, sure. I love what Stan says about Swiss Army knife, because each of these are customized for each client. And whether they're a surgeon, or whether they're a successful entrepreneur or a farmer or a rancher, they all have different fact patterns. But I think one that comes to mind would be a large farming ranching operation, more than 5,000 acres. The younger generation is running it, and they're looking at, obviously, the risks of life, and they're worried about the same things I talked about earlier, dying too soon and possibly a lawsuit type of a scenario. But they really want to improve on what their parents did and their grandparents did, so that when they get to a point where they want to turn it over to their children, which is their plan, they want to be in a position where there's significant cash flow from a plan like this. So they have multiple goals. They want tax-free income. They also want legacy. And by designing it, that family has a whole different outlook on life, and a whole different outlook on their ability to transfer to the next generation. So
I want to thank you guys so much for sharing this exceptional idea that has proven results. And I just want to remind you about our workshops coming up in September, and remind you that you can find out all sorts of information on the website. You've got information on your screen about that. Fill out a form, let us know, and then we will get back to you. Thanks once again to our most excellent experts, Gary Harris of Harris Financial, and Dan Cunningham of Cornerstone, and of course from Pinnacle Legacy Law, we have Stan Miller. And to all of you, thank you so much for spending this time with us, because we hope that it piqued your interest and that you'll want to know more. For all of us at Cornerstone, thank you and have an excellent day.
When you start anything, you do what everyone else is doing. You follow the path of those who've been successful before you. We did that, and it worked for a while. We realized we can make our clients money, but there's gotta be more than that. What if it wasn't just about making the numbers look good, but we could really enjoy the people we served? That's what we wanted to build. The Cornerstone Financial Network was born. We weren't going to be just about the numbers. They were important, but they weren't everything. We were going to be the people our clients wanted to do business with. We were going to get results, help them realize their dreams, and enjoy the process along the way. We discovered we weren't just like everyone else, and if that meant we wouldn't be for everyone, we would accept that. We valued people over process, but we knew we'd win in the end if we held true to the Cornerstone promise. We would serve our clients in a way that prioritized their goals, and we'd lead them forward to the futures they always envisioned. Join us at Cornerstone, where our promise is to lead you forward. We are committed to the success of female financial advisors. There aren't enough female advisors, and they often make less than their male counterparts. We find it interesting that this is all while research reflects that women use financial advisors more than men and prefer to work with women more than men. We believe the industry needs to change. At Cornerstone, we intend to lead that change. We're offering an opportunity for women to experience unprecedented support, training, earning potential, flexibility, and a community of women just like you. Women who want to be successful in business and in relationships. And through the Together Financial Collective Initiative, Cornerstone also contributes a portion of all female advisor proceeds to charities, making a difference in the lives of women worldwide. Consider a career at Cornerstone, where we believe in becoming the change we hope to see.
How has your relationship and your partnership at Cornerstone benefited your practice?
We've seen our revenue literally quadruple in the last 3 or 4 years. And we were doing well before we started doing that, but this has added a whole new dimension that I never thought possible. And I've been in this, like I said, for four decades.
Legacy Plus is a strategy that takes two ideas that each are, I think, quite powerful in their own right, and fuses them together in a way that makes them 10 times more powerful than either one would be standing alone.
You know, I've always felt like I was pretty knowledgeable. I've been a student on investing. I felt like I was pretty rounded on what I understood on how to invest, and had somebody lay a piece of paper in front of me. I'm looking at this piece of paper and the numbers that they're saying we're doing. I'm just like, no way. I don't believe it. It's too good to be true. I mean, that's exactly what I thought. It's too good to be true. So I jumped in and started studying it. I started reading up on it, going through everything I possibly can. Came back and it's just like, okay, this is an amazing estate planning tool that people don't know about. And so I get excited talking about it just because I think it's something most people, I've yet to find somebody that's ever heard of it before. That's what's amazing to me. It's a great, great strategy.
You partnered with Cornerstone. I'd like to know, what were the benefits of partnering with them?
The key word you said is partner. I think that is such an important word, because a partner is somebody that's for you. And I tell you what, to have them in my corner, you always have questions that come up that maybe you don't quite understand. They will help you. If they don't know the answer, they'll help you get the right one. And I really consider them an expert. They get it. It needs to be done specifically for that client, because every one of them are different. You have to really figure out what's best for them. And sometimes having somebody else to take it to and pass it through them and say, here's what I was thinking, and getting their feedback, that is partner. That's a partner, and that is what's incredible with the relationship that I've had with Cornerstone. They have been nothing but a blessing to be able to go to and work with.